Good morning, evening, or afternoon, my fellow Nerd Knights, and welcome to Classically Trained Nerds. I'm Danny, and today we're going to be doing a book with Devour of Nicholas Eames' Kings of the Wyld, and this is episode 3. We will be reviewing chapters 10 through 13. Alright, so finally have some cool things going on. The storyline is starting to progress quite well. Now, what happens in chapter 10, so to recap, which you can see here of episodes 2 and episodes 1. So they're in Mog's castle or his little tower thing, and they're trying to talk him into going with them. He agrees because he has the rot, so he's going to die, and he's also worried about his legacy, and all this other whatnot happens. So the next chapter starts off with them just kind of having dinner, or breakfast rather, and all of a sudden Kellerick's and Kellerick's goons show up, and they try to explain to Mog what the hell happened with the sword and them stealing golems and the whole whatnot. So after they explain to Mog what's going on with Kellerick, they realize they need to leave, but there's no way out because they're surrounded by a bunch of goons. So they start breaking down the door. Mog tells them to go upstairs, and when they go upstairs, they see like this ceiling of spiders. Now, I'm not much of a spider person. I'm not really necessarily afraid of them, but I'm indifferent. But the scene was really cool the way it was written. So Clay looks up and he thinks he sees stars. He thinks he's actually at night and he's looking up into the sky. And then as he focuses his eyes, he realizes that each of the dots were actually spiders. And very beautiful, really cool scene, and something I haven't seen or read before in a book or a movie. And really well done. Loved it. That was one of my favorite parts of that chapter right there. And so Mog's downstairs doing a bunch of stuff, and he rigs a bomb, basically. Goes back upstairs, and they go into this mirror, which apparently is how they saved a princess from a long time ago. And as they were coming through, there was an explosion downstairs from the bomb that Mog rigged, and it exploded his liquid dick pills everywhere. And there was this haze, and climbed up the stairs, and just as they go through the mirror, it like tags a couple people, or it kind of gets into people's in their lungs. So they go through the mirror, and that's where chapter 11 starts. Now the 11th chapter, and before I say what it's called, please YouTube, don't flag this video. You've been flagging all of these videos for reasons I have no idea why, and then I protested, and you look like an idiot because there's nothing to flag. This is safe material. But chapter 11 is called The Cuckold King. Now, I know that is a pornographic term, but it's not what you think it is. There's nothing pornographic about it here. So they go through the mirror, and they're in a bedchamber. And in this bedchamber is their old bandmate, Maderick. And he's the king of Agria So maybe back it up here. So the first time they went through the mirror, they used it to save a princess. That princess was the princess of Agria, and Maderick ended up sleeping with her and taking her virginity afterwards, and they got married and have a bunch of kids and blah, blah, blah. So he's the king now. La-di-da. Now, as they come out of the mirror, one of Kellerick's goons come out with him, and he's really, really embarrassed because he has the wicked biggest boner. And everyone's like looking at him like, hey man, like I know you want to kill us, but you should probably take care of that. And he sees it and he gets all embarrassed. And then I believe it was Gabriel goes up and knocks him out, and then he's not really knocked out, so Clay comes up and bashes him in the face with a shield, and la-di-da-di-da. Now, Maderick, who was in bed, gets up and he's watching all this, and he is laughing his ass off. He just could not stop laughing. And then all of a sudden his wife comes in, which is the old princess. Her name's Lilith, who I imagine looks like Gwyneth Paltrow. Just the way, like, Gwyneth Paltrow's very attractive now, but she was more attractive back in her heyday, and so wasn't Lilith. And I don't know, they have very similar kind of feels. Plus, Lilith's kind of a bitch, and I know Gwyneth Paltrow in real life is a really big bitch, so I figure it kind of lines up pretty well. Now, Maderick is interesting. He's kind of a hard character to pin the way he looks. I imagine he looks like a fat Vin Diesel. Now, like Vin Diesel in between his movies can like put on weight and he just looks like he's got like the dad bod thing going on. That's what I imagine Madarick looks like. Now, Madarick was the band's thief, but I can still see Vin Diesel doing that sort of thing. Like Madarick does a lot of like knife tricks and things like that, according to some of the stories that Clay and Gabriel are talking about him. And yeah, I can definitely see that happening, without a doubt. So Vin Diesel, you're now Madarick. I hope you make lots of money on this movie. So like I said, Lilith comes in. And Lilith is accompanied by a very, very large, half-naked bodyguard. This is where the suspicion starts coming in, and Clay's like, a little weird. So Lilith's like, what the hell's going on? And everyone's angry or not angry. And they're like, whatever. These are my old bandmates. They're not assassins. Let's go to bed, and we'll wake up, and we'll have breakfast, and we'll talk about it. So that's where the next part kind of comes along, in that they're at breakfast, and Clay's like, I'm seeing this huge breakfast, and he's like, wow, this is like the best thing I've ever eaten. And in this breakfast, there's the 5 kids that Madarick has, and Clay's looking at him, he's like, they all look different. And that's where it was hinted at. And basically, you know, there's the old one who's quiet, there's a fat one, there are twins, there's a girl, and there's another boy. There's 5 of them. So at breakfast, Lilith, who's Madarick's wife, announces that she's pregnant. Now, everyone is kind of excited, like, yay, congratulations, but they're not really as excited as you would expect. There was some sort of hidden feelings there, which doesn't get explained until later on, which we'll get to. So Lilith leaves because she's tired, and her half-naked bodyguard follows her, which kind of think about what's going on there. And Madarick goes to... So Madarick sends all of the servants out and the guards out, so it's just him and his bandmates, and his kids are gone. And so he talks to his bandmates, and he's like, get me the hell out of here. And everyone is like, what are you talking about? And so he tells them that the kids aren't his, even though they are, but they're not, because each one looks like a different emissary or captains of the guard or something like that. You know, none of them look like him. And he knows that Lilith's been sleeping around, hence the half-naked bodyguard. So it's all starting to kind of sort of make sense here. And Lilith wants to kill Madarick so that Madarick doesn't run off and actually father like a real heir. So I can understand that, but Madarick wants to escape, and he can't because Lilith is kind of controlling the guards, and this whole thing. So he wants the band to steal him away or kidnap him out. So chapter 12 starts off with the band heading towards the council meeting. Now the council meeting is a meeting of all of the kings and the leaders of the land with the Duke of Endland. And the Duke of Endland is the guy who's organizing all the monsters who are invading Castia, where Rose is being held. Now, that brings up a lot of motivation for the band to go to this meeting, and since one of their bandmates happens to be the King of Agria, it's a shoo-in to go to this meeting, so they're heading off. Now, most of chapter 12 is just kind of a description of the area of what's going on. Plus, you get to see all of the other kings and leaders of the area. There's a bunch of people who have problems with Madarick. Like, one of the guys' names is Han. He is supposedly the father of one of Lilith's child, and he knows it too, and he's like bragging to Madarick about it, and this got all heated, and everyone pulled out swords, and with this emotion, they start drawing swords, you know, especially between Han and Madarick because of the father-love-child thing, and there's a huge amount of tension. And all of a sudden, the Duke of Endland comes, and he's riding a Weirin. It's just kind of badass. So he's basically riding a dragon, which Clay goes into some detail between the difference between a dragon and a Weirin, and there's really not much, except dragons can talk and are more intelligent, and Weirins are more, you know, just instinct-driven and kill death, and they're the predator. All right, so this brings us into chapter 13. And chapter 13 is where things get interesting. This is where it starts to become a true fantasy book, and the storyline starts to really show and start to develop. And I love it. This is one of my favorite chapters thus far because we're introduced to the evil villain, or who we think is the evil villain thus far, and I like his style. So the Duke of Enlund shows up on his dragon, or his Weirin rather, and he is apparently a druid who is like they're kind of the elven race of this world, not really elves because they apparently have rabbit ears or like pointy rabbit ears with fur, and really interesting type of description for them. So they're really tall like elves. They have the rabbit ears. They have really he has copper hair, so it's like a reddish brown copper. Quite interesting. I like his style, I like the way he acts, and I like what he does in this chapter. So the Duke of Enlund, his name's Loose Leaf, and the band knows him. So the sword that Gabriel was trying to get from Calarek was Loose Leaf's father's sword. Say that 10 times fast. And when Loose Leaf's father gave Gabriel the sword, Loose Leaf wanted it. So they had a confrontation, and Loose Leaf lost and ended up getting a big scar under his eye. So there's a lot of hatred there. So I don't know who to envision Loose Leaf as, and I'd like your opinion on it. So let me know in the comments below what you think, because I don't know. I keep thinking different characters, and they all seem to not fit very well into the role. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. I could use some help. I'll try to drum my brain up between now and the next episode and kind of get some more ideas on who I think he looks like. So regardless, let's go on to the chapter, because it's a really cool chapter here. So the kings of the land and Loose Leaf, or the Duke of Enlund, are meeting and they're talking, and everyone is still kind of has a high tension. So basically the Duke of Enlund has this meeting to not negotiate the freedom of Castia, but to get the kings to recognize him as the ruler of Castia. And everyone, though there's one place that's just like, I don't care. The other place is like, no, you can't do that because that's evil, and we need to stop evil for humanity's sake. And Loose Leaf tells him that he can't stop the monster horde even if he wanted to, which he doesn't, clearly. And that he's only kind of manipulating them. He's not necessarily in direct control of them. Now, what else I found interesting was that he doesn't necessarily want to destroy all of these kingdoms. He just wants to be recognized as his own kingdom. And I don't know if I believe that or not, because as they're saying like, oh, we're not gonna let you do that, we'll stand up to you, we'll organize an army. He goes to each kingdom and he's like, well, if you do that, then these monster horde will come and attack you because you can't defend them off because you're sending troops. And he goes through each kingdom, and they're like, oh, that's right, you kind of have us by the balls. And Loose Leaf knows that. So everyone's feeling demoralized about that, and then Loose Leaf sees Gabriel and freaks the fuck out. He's like, oh my god, it's you, you're the... He's like freaking out. And the guy Han, who is also the father of one of Madric's, or one of Lilith's children, sees the opportunity and goes to strike Loose Leaf. And he would have connected, except Loose Leaf's Weirin eats him. And there's a grotesque scene of Loose Leaf's Weirin basically swallowing Han in half, and it's cool. It's a really cool chapter. I want to get your thoughts on what you think of this chapter. It's one of my favorites. So a really cool thing at the end of the chapter that needs to be talked about is, so after Han gets eaten and Loose Leaf leaves, and all of the other kings and kind of the rulers of the area are shuffling off, there's like this weird ceremony happening down below this hill of these like spirits of this old battle are like coming alive, or at least being, ghosts, and they're going to be there to pray, and everyone's like looking on, like, oh, that's really nice, but we should probably leave. Now, Lilith, who is really tired, apparently, because she's pregnant, she passes out, and her bodyguard gallantly lifts her up in his all half-nakedness and brings her off, and then Madrick trips, and Mog and Clay prop him up, and Madrick goes to Mog, and he's like, hey, can you do me a favor? And Mog's like, yeah, whatever you need, man. I got you. And Madrick's like, kill me tonight. And that's the end of the chapter. I love it. Awesome, awesome chapter. Best one so far. Definitely a great storyline driver and some of the really, really cool writing. So this group of chapters that we just reviewed is probably one of my favorites so far. There's storyline, there's humor. It gets serious right when it needs to get serious, and then it just gives you the right amount of humor to de-escalate the situation. So really enjoy that so far. So here's some speculation. So the last line really threw me off when Madara goes to Mog. It's like, kill me tonight. I don't know if that was him being like, just fucking kill me, like end this, or if that's part of a plan of some sorts. I'm going to assume it's part of some plan to get Madara out of the kingdom, even though I'm not really sure why they don't just walk off, since there is only a couple bodyguards right there in the hill. But, whatever. I get it. Now, how they're going to do this, I don't know. Are they going to fake his death? Are they going to actually kill him and then resurrect him later? Because there is some sort of magic, and it hasn't really been explained how the magic system works yet. But, I mean, they could throw a Deus Ex Machina in there and do something like that. I don't know. The speculation behind that is endless, because that's such a small line and there's not a whole lot to go back behind on that. I do know in one of the chapters, I think it was when they're at the dinner table and they're kind of going like, oh, you guys have to get me out of here, or Madara's telling them to get me out of here during breakfast, that Mog was like, I have a plan, but it's really risky, and that was the end of that. So maybe this is some sort of plan. I don't know. We'll find out. Now, long-term speculation about the Duke of Endland. I think he's full of shit, to be totally honest. Just the way his character is, and the fact that he saw Gabriel and now knows that the band is still around. I think he's going to try to go full force and go beyond Castia. Why stop? He's got a ginormous horde of tens of thousands, or I think it was hundreds of thousands of monsters, and there's no army around that can defeat that. So why stop at Castia? Why not just keep going? Why trick them in being allies unless that's part of his whole plot? Put them in a false sense of security and then just go in and just kill them all. And what is his motivation? I mean, okay, you rule a kingdom now, awesome. But what is he trying to restart the Druid kingdom, or the empire rather? And if so, there's really not many of those guys around, so I don't foresee that happening. Does he just want revenge on humans? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let me know in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter as well, which I'll post my handle later, and we can have more of a dynamic discussion about this. So this book does beg to be discussed. So if you want to have a more dynamic discussion, follow me on Twitter. I'll post my handle below, and it'll be at the end of the video. Also, if you want to talk about the things that have gone on in these chapters, let me know in the comments below. Please stick it to these chapters or ones previous so we don't spoil it for people. Again, if you want to have a more dynamic discussion, hit me up on Twitter. All right, thank you, my fellow NerdiKnights, for watching episode 3 of the Book Devour of Kings of the Wyld. Woo! Next week on Wednesday, which would be the 28th, we will be reviewing chapters 14 through 19. But now things are escalating quite nicely, and I anticipate a lot of really cool things in these next chapters, so stay tuned on that. So if you've enjoyed this, please like this video. It helps out greatly. And if you're new here, please subscribe. It helps the channel out immensely. Now, if you missed last week's episode, I'll post it here in the little cardy thing. And as always, my fellow NerdiKnights, I hope you have a good morning, evening, or afternoon. And remember to embrace the nerd life.